Our Target 8 investigators have helped solve a mess between Consumers Energy and a West Michigan man.
The power company wanted him to pay $5,000 for power that he didn't use. Target 8 investigator Henry Erb is in studio with more on this story tonight. Henry.
Yeah, not only was this a huge electric bill run up by somebody else, the guy says he got a shutoff notice even while he thought he was getting the problem fixed.
We got a bill showing we owed $4,769, I believe it is.
A big surprise for Ron Howell because he and his girlfriend had been back in her home in Belding just a few months.
So when I called Consumers, I was actually laughing when I talked to the guy. He says, "Oh, you guys made a mistake, and I said, "I just calling to get this corrected." And then that's when they told me that it was no mistake.
That, he says, was the start of a frustrating 3 months of trying to convince consumers that it was a mistake. Howell says he and his girlfriend moved to Sheboygan in September of 2010 to start a restaurant, and when that failed, chased jobs out west until last spring. They rented the house to somebody else. He says the renters are the ones who ran up the electric bill.
And what they explained to me was that they could prove that I was living there during the time the renter was.
And that made him good for the debt. But Target 8 investigators checked on Howell's story. We found this newspaper clipping reporting on his restaurant opening in Sheboygan in October of 2010. And we asked a neighbor in Belding.
There were some renters in here.
There was.
And was the guy that owned the house, Ron, living there at the same time?
Oh, absolutely not.
And Howell says he faxed paper, lots of paper, to consumers showing he was living in Sheboygan and Washington and Colorado during that time.
I got car insurance, utility bills from Colorado, different FedEx bills, employer pay stubs. Also leased an apartment out in Colorado. I got the lease agreement to that.
But it didn't do any good. Howell says they lost his paperwork. He had to fax it again. He says a guy who was working on it went on vacation, then he got sick, and then
I got a shutoff notice. Pay it or else.
Howell says they held off on turning off his power, but says the company told him it could prove he had a phone and cable in his name at that address. He says it's his girlfriend's house, and he never had utilities in his name until they moved back to Michigan last year.
Quite frankly, it's frustrating enough. If it was $80 to $100, I mean, for the nightmare that you go through with this, you would just pay it to be done with it. But obviously at this scale, I simply cannot and will not just pay it.
By January, the bill had grown to more than $5,100, and Howell contacted Target 8 investigators. We emailed Consumers Public Relations guy Roger Morgenstern.
I contacted our customer service department and I said, this is a concern. Can we please get on it?
Somebody new was already working on Howell's complaint. He faxed in more paperwork. Now Consumers has decided Howell really does have a legitimate claim.
And we're putting in a request to remove that debt from his account.
But we wondered, how does somebody run up a bill of nearly $5,000 without being shut off? We got a phone number and tried to call the renters whose bill Ron Howell nearly had to pay.
Oh, wrong number? You're not Gary?
Consumer says the answer could be as simple as running up a big balance on a payment plan, or
it could be a matter of people moving to different addresses and the debt comes with them. Sometimes people try to game the system and they change names.
Morgenstern says they'll look into Howell's claim about the frustrating process.
And we're really focused on first-time problem resolution. Getting things resolved the first time and not having it go on and on and on.
Morgenstern says if you think something's wrong with your bill, call Consumers right away. He says sometimes they do need documentation to back up a customer's claim, such as in Ron Howell's case, and he says it may take some time. If you have trouble paying your bill, he says Consumers will try to work something out with you.
Boy, a lot of round and around with that one. I'm glad he could get some help. Henry, thank you.